Right. Okay, so I'm Sherry Ann Lovegrove, and I'm what I call an evolutionary midwife and a mental fitness coach. And I work with women suffering with imposter syndrome who self-sabotage, procrastinate, and sophisticatedly hide because they're afraid they'll be found out, that they're a fraud. So they're like the superwomen who try to do everything themselves. And so they don't, they don't say no. They worry what people think. They put pressure on themselves to be perfect. They over control, maybe a little, or micromanage, overgive, and often land up being stressed, overwhelmed, and depleted. I'm just seeing that someone says they can't get through to the link. I'm not sure why, but I will send them the link on another way, just very quickly. And hopefully they'll be able to get through. So what I do is I help them to develop the mental fitness to confidently take back control, tame their mental saboteurs, and create a new future that is healthier, wealthier, happier, and fun. So for me, that is really the epitome of what sovereignty is, that you have health, wealth, happiness, and creativity, fun. So today's talk, we're going to talk about what does nurturing yourself look like and for others as a sovereign woman. This is a huge topic, and I bet every time you look and you see posts, we know that the internet and LinkedIn and most social medias are awash. They're awash with self-care. And one of the things is that I think that a lot of us have become habituated to the idea of hearing so much about what we should and shouldn't do. And that is really because we're designed to constantly be changing, constantly be evolving. And so we're designed to begin to ignore what we already know, and because that part of us wants to grow. So it means that we often don't spend a lot of time necessarily paying attention to self-care or to self-nurture. But I do believe that at some level, we have abandoned ourselves. We've abandoned ourselves when we don't nurture ourselves. Yeah, I think we have. And we've chosen that it is better to believe the lie that we must push ourselves to the nth degree, that we can be successful, or to be a good mother or lover or friend, you've got to sacrifice yourself and put your needs second to everybody else's. But maybe it's worth just quickly exploring why that lie happened. Why did that lie come about, that we mustn't look after ourselves and always put others first? And if you don't put yourself first, you're selfish. In fact, if you put yourself first, you start to imagine that this is actually really a dirty word. All right. It's a word that is the last thing that women want to experience, is to be called selfish. Yeah. Now I know that there are different kinds of women in the world, and we've all got our own experience of things. And sometimes if you're lucky, you're a radical individualist and you have had that ability to be a maverick. And I know that there's a lovely person, Sheila Balgobin, who is always and has been a maverick. And so she's the dream decipherer. And she's a wonderful human being. And for her, it was always taking care of herself. But for most women, excuse me, most women, it's often a misnomer to take care of ourselves. And in actual fact, in evolutionary terms, it wasn't part of the collective nature, really, to actually be selfish, all right, to be considered to be selfish, because the tribe would fail. The tribe might end up being in danger. So it really is quite interesting that, we as women carry that selfishness, or the idea that if we nurture ourselves, we're being selfish, and yet Men do it all the time. They are always taking care of their needs first. Well, most men. I'm not going to say all men, but most men. And so it's a really interesting dynamic, this power paradox, as women started to move into a world where we kind of started to work in jobs that men had and take those kinds of roles, but we still needed to take care of ourselves at home and take care of the children and take care of everything. So basically, you still stay a 24/7 mom, but with the additional work. So yeah, we know that in the collective terms, women were always there and were always decided that they couldn't be selfish. And if you had to watch something like Bear Grylls, where we talk about the collective of the tribe, where people go onto an island and they have to survive, it's only, initially what happens is everyone's fighting. Everybody's got an idea and everybody has their own opinion. But once you find that they start to settle, natural leaders start to come about, but also they start to begin to work together, where people that were initially very self-focused, they weren't going to help out, they weren't going to do any of those things, ended up doing, yeah? And they had to learn, they had to work collaboratively together. But the thing is, often what happens is there is a disproportion of where the work goes, and often it is women that suffer. But also, we also need to learn as women to get out of the way of our ego. Because when we have our ego in the way, we will be ruled by saboteurs. But we need our ego. We need our ego because our ego is the desire that we have. Our ego is our divine essence. Our ego makes us want and desire things, but it's often clouded by the lies and the filters through which we live. So, yeah, when we don't nurture ourselves, we are more susceptible to the lies. We're more susceptible to the lies. So we have to educate our ego to develop an ability to hear the deeper truths of why we're here and what we must do in order to be of service to that deeper truth. So if anything comes up here that you kind of think, oh, that's interesting, please put it into the chat. I'd love to know what you think about that. Is the ego a bad thing or a good thing? Just put that in the chat. Do you have an idea for yourself? What is your alter ego, or the ego that kind of drives you a little bit insane? So I'm going to go back to one of my most favorite topics, because I think that when we talk about self-nurture, this is key and pivotal in order to be and stay committed to it. And I'm going to be really honest, until I started to pay attention in a different way, I wasn't as committed to my self-care as I used to be. I'm committed now, but there was a time that I wasn't. So my favorite topic is going back to really understanding a deep truth. Before we were in the physical, all of life was conspiring for you to exist so that you could become. It's almost like the life principle was doing whatever it could in order for you to be born. And that every experience you've had has brought you to this experience in your life. And it was meant to be. All the choices that you made were meant to be for you to learn so that you could become in a specific way, that you could become who you were destined to become. But it was all meant to be, every choice that you took. And that your life force is the pure essence. And it only wants one thing, that it wants to be manifested in its brilliance, in its heavily, but the problem is it's heavily contaminated by past experience. And so it only experiences, or we only see it as the limited version of itself. So how does this fit into self-nurturing? Yeah, well, we nurture ourselves for one reason. We nurture ourselves so that we can become free. We can become free to become the best version of ourselves. And yeah, you've got it. We must nurture ourselves into the full expression of this life principle. Nurturing does the most important thing. What do you think it does? Nurturing brings us back to our body. It brings us back to our body. And because most of us are spending so much time outside our body, all our senses, or predominantly our visual and our auditory and our smell, are making us experience life from the outside. Yeah, because we have to live in a world and navigate a world. Yeah, so all those senses are always looking outside. And that means a lot of our attention is going outside. But when we start to nurture, we start to come back inside ourselves. We start to treasure ourselves in some way. So when we're spending our time outside our body, looking at other things all the time, we start to deplete. We start to deplete. Yeah? Because we're putting all that energy out there and we're running low. And when that happens, we go into the stress survival system, right? It causes us to shut off. It causes us to go into that stress survival system. And for women, particularly, Claire Zammit of Feminine Power talks about 3 key patterns that really, really, really seem to be very common in the way women respond. And part of those key patterns that keep women limited is shame, lack, and isolation. Shame, lack, and isolation. And so when we're under duress, this is often where we go. And women with imposter syndrome, definitely the isolation is really pivotal because that's a biggie for a lot of women with imposter syndrome. And I believe that because I look at things very differently, I believe that the reason for this is because women are dominated by the old parasympathetic system. All right, the old parasympathetic system that feeds the lower part of the somatic body. So we have 2 parts of the parasympathetic system. We have an old part and we have a new part. And the new part actually is formed in the sense that it is more about our mammalian brain, okay? And it's slightly different because it's a towards kind of action. But the old part is the sink and the pounce, which is very much like the reptilian part. Now, I don't know about you, but I know that when I've bit my tongue, when I've held back, when I haven't said my piece, when I haven't been myself, well, it takes just the last little bit that breaks the camel's back and I explode and I pretty much destroy everything else that's around. And that is often what happens with women. They hold, and then they explode. All right. So it's not a very healthy pattern. But also because women experience pain in the sense of that they feel shame, what happens is that they end up going deeper down into that isolation because shame isolates. Shame takes us into distress. And so we start to implode inside. So let's think about this. And I want to think about it if you're kind of like, let's go on both worlds. So I've got into the medical and kind of the scientific, but in metaphysical terms, we can think of this as the lower 3 chakras, the root chakra, the sacral chakra, and the solar plexus chakra. So the one right down at the perineum, the one sort of just above the uterus, and the one that sits just below the sternum, all right, the sitting up here just near the stomach. And each of those have very specific kinds of behavior. So the root, when our root is affected, then of course that means that we're in a very difficult place, because when we feel shame, which is really our root, that's the root chakra, when it shuts down and we stop fighting because of the lies that we believe, like we're dirty, we're not wanted, we're worthless, we're bad. All of those things keep us small. They push us in and they hold us in. So what happens is we close up there. Okay, we don't want to be procreating at this point. We want to close up. And then when we experience lack, we feel it in our stomachs, and more the sacral, the part of us that burns and creates and cooks and does things like that. And that lie, when that lie is there, we've got to fill it. So we often end up over-consuming. Yeah, over-consuming, overeating, overworking, over-shopping, lovely retail. Yeah, over-shopping, over-loving, over-demanding, becoming over-interfering because you want to fill and have people find you. And then the last one, which is the part that's the solar plexus, is the one where we self-isolate. And this is, where we don't connect, we don't open up, we don't show ourselves because we're too ashamed or we're too scared. So it's just really realizing that we have this connection. So the reason self-nurturing is so important as a sovereign person is recognizing that the moment we're in distress, we are shifting our energetic boundaries. We are changing all the little receptors on our cells. So we're either going to have things leaking out or things coming in, which we don't want, all those horrible lies that come in. So self-nurturing is about actively activating that top part of our parasympathetic system. And it's about learning how to embrace that fierce protectiveness towards ourselves that we would have as a mother towards a child. A fierce protectiveness towards ourselves. And this is what we've got to have. And being fiercely protective towards ourselves is the only way forward as a sovereign woman. Because then we understand fully, completely, that to nurture ourselves means to protect ourselves. It is not because it's good or a nice thing to do. No, it is because it's crucial. It is essential. And we need to fiercely protect ourselves. So, because when we fiercely protect ourselves, we tell our body, you matter. We tell ourselves, you matter. Yeah? And when we do that, we tell ourselves, you are loved no matter what. So you don't feel the shame. You don't feel the isolation. You feel the connection. And you feel full because you are being filled up. And as I was saying, and I say this is a part of me that sort of kind of remembers how it is to not actually self-nurture. And one of the things that I have been keenly doing is really paying attention to how I nurture myself and how I take care of myself in very specific ways. But one of the key things that I do is I make sure that I'm looking after my mental state so that I don't have those saboteurs, those inner critics, those mean, horrible voices stopping me from doing what I need to do. And only when I have and am loved, that I love myself, can I manage to protect myself. I can fiercely manage my mind and I can fiercely protect my mind. So by carefully measuring every day, doing something consistently, measuring it, looking at it, And this was really interesting. While I was thinking about, oh, I stopped doing my 5-2, I realized I stopped measuring. So I said, I don't matter. And of course, I put weight back on. So measuring matters. Measuring tells the body we care, right? So it's about really looking at how we're measuring our self-care. So during the day, are you doing things in ways that you can measure that you're doing self-care? And if you're doing it consistently, regularly, you're topping yourself up in order so that you can be strong. So, okay, let's just do a quick example. I know that we're sort of at 20 minutes, so I thought it might be useful to just have a quick little visualization so that you can just experience something. So whenever we criticize ourselves or are unkind to ourselves, or we choose to lie or listen to the lies of others, then I want you to truly understand something. You have abandoned yourself, right? You have abandoned yourself. And as an evolutionary midwife, it really is important to rebirth this idea that you have abandoned yourself if you choose to listen to the lies. If you choose to listen to the lies that then stop you from loving yourself, stop you from mattering to yourself, all right? So this is really the key. And so in order to get back on track, we have to do certain things. And remember, I said something really important. I said that the moving towards was the higher parasympathetic. The higher parasympathetic is so pivotal because it's our self-soother. So if we think about horses, what do they do collectively to help each other? They bite each other's necks, all right? So there's all these particular areas around the neck of a horse that really is very good for them to kind of relax, yeah? And they need that, So as humans, we also have areas in our face and in our neck that are particularly important, all right? So when we turn towards ourselves and we talk to ourselves, we have the parasympathetic. The vagus nerve here is to our throat. So when we talk in soothing, loving, cooing kinds of voices, oh, our body just loves it. Yes. And when we do that, we also hear. And yes, the vagus nerve has a link to the ears. Oh, yes. Okay. So when we speak nicely to ourselves, oh, wow, it's happy. It's happy. And when we allow our eyes to diffuse a little bit, to defocus a little bit, oh, yeah, we're doing it again. We're activating the parasympathetic. So think about those things as something that you can do every day, even if it's very small, in how you can talk to yourself and self-soothe very quickly. This is a key focus you could do to nurture, all right? So we want to develop that fierce protectiveness to yourself, to your inner child. Basically, it is to your inner child, because that's how you're going to talk to you. That emotional body, that emotional you needs to feel that resonance of the voice that you're going to talk to, needs to hear that resonance. It needs to feel that resonance, and it needs to see it in a whole different view. But we're going to talk about an internal view here. Okay, so how do we start to fiercely protect your inner child? And especially from those mean inner saboteurs that have been persecuting you and that you've listened to other people's untruths, yeah? And commit to create a program that will help her blossom and grow. So what I'd like you to do is take a moment, just close your eyes. Okay, just close your eyes and just allow yourself to get a mental picture of you as a child. All right, just let one come up. And what I'd like you to do is I want you to just see what she's wearing. How is her hair? What kinds of shoes has she got on? And just see her and see what she's doing. Just see what she's doing. Okay. Now I have an image that I'm seeing me feeding a little a little buck. It was a duiker. All right. So a little buck, and I'm giving it. And I was thinking to myself, as I look at that, I look at this child, I see her as a giving child. I see her for the magnificence that she has as a soft heart. And I know this is bringing emotions up, but that's okay, because we want to bring how we love that child. See her for the pure essence of the life force. And let her know that every pain, every worry, every concern can be made better. Can be made better. It's like a mother that kisses away tears. Can be made better by simply just holding her. And that no one can protect her like you. So sit there for a minute. And even if she's doing something that's like, oh my God, I'm standing up for myself, then look at that essence and just say yes. Yes, 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 yes. But do the yes, and it's unconditional. And if any negative thought jumps in, that's a damn saboteur. That's one of those mean, nasty, horrible voices. You just say, no, I'm going to be fiercely protective of that child. Hold her tighter. Hold her tighter and just say, that's it. I'm taking care. And then what I want you to do is I want you to, as you hold her, let her look into your eyes. And let her see that you mean business. And that you have her back fiercely and protectively and forever. And when you're done, just gently let her play. Let her carry on doing what she's good at. While you supervise, you stay, I'm here, I'm watching. I'm here. I'm here always. And if that's brought up emotions and if it's brought up things, I want you to just honor them and just acknowledge and be with that. So it may feel it may feel beautiful, it may feel bittersweet, it may feel joyful. And when you're ready, just put that in the comments and let me know. Let me know. Because the one thing I do know, when we become fiercely protective, we will do whatever it takes to ensure that she gets to become who she's destined to be. And I want this for you. I want this for, if you're a mother, I want this for your child. And if you're a grandmother, I want this for your grandchild. I want this for you. I want this for the world. Because it's only when we can be fiercely protective and nurture ourselves can we truly nurture others. Can we truly be protective in a way that is allowing them to become unconditionally who they need to be. That is what being sovereign is. Sovereign is not about controlling. Sovereign is not about taking over. Sovereign is not about depleting. Sovereign is about allowing, opening up, discovering, standing for in the true power of who you are. So, if any of this resonates for you and you'd like to find out more how I can help you as a sovereign, as a woman, do this in a sovereign way, I have 5 sovereign way breakthrough calls that are free. And in that call, we will explore together your biggest block. And I'll give you some idea on how I might be able to help you have greater health, wealth, happiness. and a sovereign mind. I'm going to put a link in the comments after this live. And thank you so much for being with me today. I hope you enjoyed. Please let me know in the comments what came up. I really would love to know. Thank you. Bye-bye.